Alright, so one of the most beautiful gifts in marriage is intimacy. So it is through affection and intimacy that husband and wife continue to grow as one flesh, just as God intended. So, Bugs, would you please do the honor of introducing our speakers for this afternoon?
Yes, okay. So our speakers have been happily married for 19 wonderful years and are blessed with 4 amazing children. One thing they love doing together is traveling. In fact, one of their most memorable trips was in Australia in 2019. What made that trip special wasn't just the destination, it was the journey. For the very first time, they traveled without a fixed itinerary. Even more surprising, wife took the lead in planning the adventure. So they explored together, meet friends, enjoyed activities she booked, and simply treasured every moment. They call each other Boo. Their secret to a strong marriage is making time for family bonding and international vacations because they believe that creating memories together strengthens relationship. Friends, you've heard his voice every single week throughout Beyond I Do. He's the voice behind many of our weekly videos, faithfully using his gifts for God's glory. And beside him is a remarkable woman, a devoted wife, a loving mother, a woman with a heart for God, and recently an accomplished author. Beyond I Do family, please give a big round of applause to our speakers today. Brother Moises Ma Alvarado and Sis Diana Ibrahim.
Okay, so how's everybody doing? We're good? Alright, so I understand this talk was given to us a couple of months ago, and I'd like to believe, and on a personal note, that the title itself is Affectionate Sex, perhaps because the crafters or the organizers realized that my wife is very affectionate. And I don't know if you believe, but maybe the sex appeal is with me. So. Just like I said, I'm just putting it out there. Okay, feel free to clap if you don't agree. So again, this is a talk about affectionate sex. So we're ready to settle down the room. Just kidding. So again, hello ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about the elephant in the bedroom this time. Especially the gap between Hollywood scenes and the actual reality. And in movies, intimacy is effortless, no? Perfectly lit and always synchronized.
Yes, because in reality it involves messy emotions, mismatched libidos, and sometimes just wanting a hug without making it a negotiation.
Today, we are pulling back the covers on what happens when honeymoon phase fades. We will explore how to rebuild attraction from the couch to the bedroom.
And how affection might just be the ultimate cheat sheet for the marriage also.
That's right. So making love is not always the same as love making. Making love often refers to the intimacy or to the physical act of sexual intimacy.
Love making refers to the emotion, the relational, and spiritual expression of love through physical intimacy.
So in other words, a couple can have sex or making love without necessarily experiencing the deeper connection, affection, tenderness, and self-giving that characterize lovemaking.
For married couples, love typically includes affection before and after intimacy, emotional connection and vulnerability, mutual care and consideration.
Communication of love, not just desire. So it's a sense of unity, commitment, and giving rather than taking.
Intimacy begins long before the bedroom, right?
Sure.
with kindness, appreciation, listening, knowing that you are heard, touch, encouragement, and emotional closeness throughout the day.
Now, sex is an activity two people can do. Lovemaking is an expression of loving relationship. The difference is not in the act itself, but in the heart, connection and commitment behind it.
Affection nurtures emotional intimacy.
Emotional intimacy also nurtures physical intimacy. So again, ladies and gentlemen of BID 2026, welcome to Beyond IQ Talk number 8. Affection and sex. So this afternoon's topic is sure to be a fiery one. No? It's a subject that many couples cringe at when it comes up. And one, perhaps, that many would rather avoid altogether, especially when asked to speak about it. So a handful of us in HCC were asked to talk about it, and not brave enough to talk about it and volunteer. So it fell on our lap. Well, especially when asked to speak about it, that's what I said. So in the end, but despite our discomfort, it remains to be one of the most important conversation in marriage. Because when we avoid talking about it, we often miss the opportunity to understand, connect, and grow closer to our spouse.
In the first talk, we talked about who is in charge. Who here still remembers that?
Who's in charge?
How does God design marriage?
Maybe you could recall on the first talk who's in charge. So, the fundamental truth is that marriage is more than just living together or it's becoming one.
Affection and sex are gifts intended to strengthen unity. Emotional and physical intimacy are interconnected.
So when coming together in marriage, we are one, and God gifted us with affection and sex to strengthen that bond, and our emotions and physical intimacy are intertwined. Thus, affection is very important.
So before we look into what affection is, let's do a little couple activity.
That's right. So at this point, let's do a little exercise. Okay lang? Okay.
Yeah. Let's try have the couple face each other, please.
Can we face each other? You're with your couple right now.
Yes. And complete this sentence.
So this is a sentence we want you to complete. And the sentence goes, one thing I love about you that I do not say enough is. And then you could say it to each other. We'll give you time. You can face each other, please.
You can
Not
also
my side.
whisper now.
Okay, in 3, 2, 1, go. Finish the sentence. All right. So I think what's important in this exercise is what I don't say enough. I think that's what's important in this simple exercise. One thing I love about you that I do not say enough. I think that's the most important part, completing that sentence.
Yes, and we have a lot of love language. We have speech, we give service as our love language, and it's important for us to know what is the love language of our spouse. Okay, kasi appreciation sa nilaiting ng spouse. Or she or he is more on a service. So we give that love or affection to your spouse through the love language that he or she would be receiving. And what you just did earlier is an example of affection. Affection is got rather than love. These are small daily gestures that are deposits to fund the emotional bank account of marriage. So there is an emotional bank account in marriage, and that's why we can fight and then be okay after a while, because we have invested in our relationship. Our emotional bank account is high, and that's what we do. We deposit through the affection that we show to our spouse.
And we always include that activity in our couple's time, or the time you spend together. I do believe last week you were asked to go on a date deliberately, and some of you took photos of that and then you sent it to the HCC and all that. Again, let's give a round of applause to those who just did that. And maybe on that next date that you will have, you'll include that activity and complete that sentence and maybe improve on it on your personal time, right? So again, to be more affectionate to each other, it has to be deliberate.
And I look forward to doing that in our couple time also. And we do that week to week. And that's part of how we invest into our emotional bank account. We do the connection. And it's not just that we expect it, but we also say it. So to further define what affection is, let's talk more about it in this slide.
So affection is the daily language of love, spoken long before you reach the bedroom. These are the non-sexual expression of love and care.
The daily demonstration of appreciation. Kind words and encouragement. For example, saying, I love you, I appreciate you, I'm proud of you, I see you, are small things. Repeated over time, they become the soundtrack of secure, thriving marriage. A hand held, a hug, a second longer, it's 8 seconds actually, a kiss that is not rushed. These are romantic gestures. They are biological signals that say, you are safe here. I am with you. You are safe with me.
And I'd just like to point out that when we start doing this, we actually were very conscious of the 8-second hug. So before going to work, when we arrived, 8 seconds. So 1, 2,
Yes.
delivery.
Yes. Because sometimes we are always in a rush and we're so we take time to just pause and be intentional in the hug. So for Mac, it's as simple as making his morning coffee or holding his hand while he's driving and resting his my head on his chest while he's watching TV.
Affection creates emotional security. Acts of service. Now, I organize our stuff when we pack for travel. Prioritize every time she asks me to do errands. So, those are my thing. Quality time that includes our husband and wife dialogue, and I always have lunch with her on Wednesday. So, that's a time I get to protect, to have lunch with her. That's every Wednesday. So, for those of you who I am teammates with at work, so you know that my Wednesday lunch will always be with her. And I'm not a King movie guy, but I sometimes watch it before, so because she watches it, she loves doing it. So I become a Korea boo for my mood. No? And you may try this daily, touch your spouse intentionally 5 times a day. Ayoko na nahanap. Hindi ko sila manok. Touch your wife daily, 5 times a day. Maybe a shoulder squeeze, a forehead kiss, a hand in the back, and see that how changes your relationship after the week. There was a study that was mentioned that a kid, kaya nila mga orphanage, na nagbiyaan sa mga mama, they need huggers for babies. Because apparently, if babies, when they're born, and then they lack human touch, they will just naturally deteriorate and eventually die. So we're created to be held. And sometimes we tend to forget about it or maybe take it for granted, especially because there's comfortability in it. So we would like to encourage you to do that daily. And if we think you to be conscious about it 5 times, well, at least try it and you get to see the impact of it the following week.
Yes, and it needs to be conscious maybe for 21 days because it takes 21 days to build a habit, right? So you may feel uncomfortable for a while, but later on it would come naturally with you, especially if we are not, we did not grow up in a family na anak ko.
Yeah, Inami Kailan, when was the last time you touched your husband? Last week, na naman, ako check, gilantad ba? So, di ko daw kuha, gilan na to para makita sa forehead. Kaya touch naman pa sige ko.
So from the simple act of making coffee and neatly folding clothes for trips to cute sticky notes in our Wednesday date lunches, these moments truly matter for me. They fulfill my emotional needs, build trust and friendship, and most importantly, prepare our hearts for deeper intimacy. Yet, as beautiful as these mundane rituals are, they do not come without any challenges. Number one, the busyness and stress. Work pressure. For me who work at home, it has its own challenges also. And the reason for that is because I don't have an office, diba? Like when you go out of the house and you go to the office, when you come back, that office worker is out the door, diba? But when you're in the same house, kaya madala mo yung ipang the work sa kusina and everywhere else. So I always make it a habit that when I step out of the room where I work, it's life outside that thing. So apparently, hindi ko mag-yo-yo.
Yeah. Well, I kind of get used to it because in radio we have earnings. So even if stress sa balay, when I go on board, it's not Moises, it's Mac Haley. So it's a different persona. So we could, even if you don't feel like it, so when you go on board and open your mic and broadcast, so it's not you. So it's kind of takes time to get used to it. But these are common blockers of affection. You get to bring all these things. No? Next common blockers is parenting responsibilities. So you're preoccupied with children from picking them up from school, assignments, school activities, plus household duties. Leave little energy or mental space for intimacy. Another would be as simple as hellos and goodbyes. Here's a quick question. For husbands, when you arrive home and your wife is there and the kids are there, who do you kiss first? Who do you kiss first? Babies. And I spoke to the psychologists and they say sometimes it affects our intimacy. Why? The order of things which were given in our lives were husband or wife first before kids. But why is it that when you arrive home, it's kids first before wife? So these are just simple mental exercises. So that because when your kids see that you prioritize your wife, that's the perfect way to raise gentlemen. Because we model it to our kids. So our kids, our children, daughters, and sons get to see it, and they can see, if you want to model how gentlemen are like, when you arrive home, kiss first the wife before the kids. This would give a mental reminder for the kids that mommy is important to daddy. It creates stability for the children as well. That's the impact of affection.
Yes. Next is technology distractions. This topic was given to me, but I'd like to think that dito per my cell phone because I'm a software engineer and technology is my space. But seriously, the constant digital interruption erode our connection, especially kaya yung mga notifications, they just keep coming sa phone. And everything is there on our iPhone na. So, and sometimes that connection with your spouse, like how many na yung mga to restaurant and the couple is not even talking to each other, diba? And that's what we try to avoid, where when we are at the table or when we are together and trying to have some family bonding, that we are really present and putting our devices away. If it's important, people will call. Diba? They will not text. If it's an emergency, they will call. So the devices are, we thought everything is important and urgently at the end. And it gives the social name is fobbing, where you are phone snubbing, and the device shifts your attention from your partner to your phone, and from living the present moment to somewhere else. And it gives a false sense of connection. You're ignoring a partner in favor of your phone. It reduces eye connection, it reduces active listening, which is crucial for empathy and emotional understanding and connection. And there's also this social comparison. Even if grabe kita kasi secure yung people, when we continue to see people na happy kasi sa lives, and travel sila, di ba? There is really that psychological impact on you, on your, where there's some unrealistic expectations and maybe just a little jealousy when partners compare their real life relationship to curated highlights of someone else. Because that's not true. We know na, and so what we do, because social media is also important in other things, you would want to like remember some memory, you just post and then leave. Post and snap. So, and then there's miscommunication. Texting and instant messaging gives a different, it depends on the person receiving the message. So kung pati ang mood, the message that you receive is also different. So it is always important to move to face to face, and it's important to do the weekly husband and wife dialogue.
That's right. So one of the things I remember was I had the privilege and blessing to watch Kobe Bryant play Staples Center. And one of my friends was saying, why don't you grab your phone and take a capture this in video? I said, I did fly 10 hours plus, travel here, pay the ticket just to put it on the screen. I want to see it live. So I want to show you, I want to put it in my brain, then on the screen. And I realized, I also saw this picture of Jordan's last game, Kobe's last game, and I realized how many of them were there? 100,000 maybe perhaps. But how many of them were really there? They reduced their attention to the screen instead of seeing it live. And for me, I find it very difficult. You know, I mean, instead of watching them live in person, we reduce it to a pixel. So that also is something that affects affection. I'm just doing it in side notice to give practical application. And I would like to ask here, what's the first thing you touch in the morning and the last thing you touch at night? If it's your phone, I mean, sometimes, because this was asked in one of our trainings by a speaker, what's the first thing you touch in the morning? Sometimes when you wake up, your phone is there notification. What's the last thing you touch at night? A little phone before you go to bed. Maybe that also affects the affection. Right? So it's very important.
Dapat spouse.
Dapat spouse. First thing you touch.
So every time you touch your phone, dapat spouse beside. Every touch of phone, spouse beside, di ba?
Because technology decreases physical touch. Let's face it, no? Scrolling in bed, scrolling while in bed or constantly holding a device reduces the opportunity for casual, non-sexual touch like hugging, holding hands, or cuddling. You know, it's very important for us to be mindful that sometimes we may not have a third party, but our devices becomes the third party. So it's very important in affection. All these may lead to unresolved conflicts. Unresolved conflicts.
Hurt feelings create emotional distance. Resentment reduces affection.
And of course, we must never take each other for granted. Like a fine wine, we should only get better with time, never bitter. And assuming love does not need expression, neglecting intentional connection. So affection is a choice before it becomes a feeling. Now, of course, these are examples of common obstacles in affection. So acknowledging that these are all blockers to our intimacy, we should be conscious as well to remind ourselves to practice affection and be mindful of what affects affection. Now again, let's talk about sex this time. Sex is more than physical pleasure. It is a language of love, acceptance, and commitment.
Sex is a reflection of divine love, the one flesh principle. At its core, the covenant of marriage is established through mutual vows and consummated through the physical act of sex. In Genesis 2:24, this union is described as two becoming one flesh.
Sex is also an explicit command of God in Genesis to be fruitful and multiply, the procreation mandate. So hindi po gagawa ng tao itong sex. This is actually what God designed for marriage.
Most couples don't fail for lack of love. They fail for lack of honest conversation. Men and women are different. That is why it is important for us to communicate. Be it the mind readers, be it the mind readers. Understanding our differences are not defects actually. They are invitation for us to go deeper.
I like beautiful things, as like most men, while others turn their heads with shiny, beautiful hair. I, on the other hand, am drawn to a woman's stat and physique. Men in general are physical. So, again, I'm attracted to a physique, a woman's stat.
I, on the other hand, want to be seen and listened to. I want his attention. I want his involvement. Not just physically present, but also in full focus. For example, if I tell him that this Friday we're going to have a graduation ceremony, I expect him to be there. I expect him to be not on his phone. I expect him to stand and take videos of our kid. Partnership is not just dragging your partner and letting that partner be there, present physically. That person also needs to be there. This is not a dictatorship after all. So my intimacy is more emotional, but bonus naman din ng buwak tayo si Ma.
So again, neither is wrong one, diba? My intimacy is more, her intimacy is more emotional, I'm more physical. Neither is wrong. Both are valid. Agree? Both are valid. The goal is to meet each other in the middle with curiosity, not criticism. For me to be open emotionally, no? I need to feel respected. It does not mean what I say always will be followed, but considered and has weight. She and I are different.
And you know, us women, our words can be harsh. We say hurtful words that can penetrate in ang ego, that's a feeling, di ba? And we know words that are disrespectful and conclusive will hurt. And let's not do that, please. I mean, this is a relationship that will last us a lifetime. Mo na miss siya. Di na siya kulihan. So we might as well live a harmonious, peaceful life with our spouse. Let's be respectful even when we're angry. Words like, wala man kay gamit, di ba? You say instead, I feel tired. I want you to take this instead. Oh, di ba? So may siya, oh, tired na si Busi, kaya ako na. Oh, di ba? Kasi may mo kay gamit, ano yun, di ba? So it would give a different response from him. So I love us. When I feel love, I respect. Parang when I feel love, respect ko ikaw. Feel mo ako na love. Pero when kanang he feels respected sad, he loves sad. So either of us can choose to start the cycle. Did you see that if he feels disrespected, di siya na love. Pero because di naman siya mula, baka nagkatay-katay na, di ba? We're like, ako sabi, nasa ko. So that's how the snowball becomes bigger. And let's not do the snowball. Let's be conscious of putting an end to that.
And of course, it was mentioned earlier that we've been married for 19 years, and in the early stage of our marriage, we were lovers. Later on, you realize that it was a union of lovers. Later on in marriage, you realize it's a union of forgivers. It shifts. But one thing I realized after 19 years of being married, my wife only wants one thing. Only wants one thing. That's everything. Another difference is how we process stress. Like I know process of stress, no? And it affects affection and sex. So I see a lot of women agree with me that what you were saying, Bo, on how women are capable of speaking 10,000 words a minute. They are when they're emotionally high. But as for us men, what would help us as well is to have 10-second memory, like a goldfish. So kung ang women are capable of 10,000 words in a minute when they're angry, men's response should be like the goldfish, have a 10-second memory. Dali daw makalimot. No? No? And because our tendency sometimes, if not most of the time, is to withdraw, walk away, or resort to our man cave.
Yes. And I think that's also true to women. Women should also have a 10-second memory. Sometimes, na 1 week na lang nilabay, nalagot pa ta. No? So, dapat goldfish at ta. Okay? And like Max said, I process my stress by connecting and talking. Kasi good. When you think about it, it's only through talking, not through mind reading, where you can reduce most of the friction. But you wait for the high emotion to subside. Because when you're ready to talk about it to your husband and wife, regular schedule talk, then that's the time. One thing that I heard from my pastoral leader is that the bedroom is a sacred place. So do not discuss stressful things in the bedroom. The bedroom is for affection and sex, diba? So do not talk about do not do the husband and wife dialogue in the bedroom. That's a separate. You go maybe on a separate, exclusive meeting on conference room para pwede mo pag-sinabitan. Pero not.
Because when you ask a mattress salesman, the mattress could not afford that kind of stress. Iba yung stress na kaya ng mattress. So they will always say, ma'am, you keep it to your husband and wife dialogue. Walk sa bedroom. So and that's the reason why you have frequent dialogue with your spouse. You can press issues and all that. Now, the marriages that report the highest satisfaction actually
Not the ones where each person gets what they want. They're the ones where each person focuses on what they can give. A marriage guy is selfless. It's not like, mo man ako ang ganahan, but what can I give? What can I give as service to my spouse? That shift alone transforms the marriage.
it's loving. It's not because of, but in spite of. And imagine if your goal is to outlove your partner, what a wonderful world this would be. Huh? So, in your marriage right now, who is doing more giving? And who doesn't feel mutual? And doesn't feel mutual? You don't have to raise your hands or raise your eyebrows. Just
Or roll your
process it.
eyes.
Or roll your eyes. In your marriage right now, who's doing the more giving? And does it feel mutual? You could look at your spouse. Who's doing more giving? And does it feel mutual? The goal is not perfect 50-50 balance every day. That's not the goal. Some seasons, one spouse carries more. The goal is that both of you are oriented toward giving, not keeping score. Not keeping score. We are unconventional, while conventional stereotype dictates that women should be decorating the house, ironing and packing the clothes when you travel. As I, the husband, take that task as my act of mutual care and service. Organizing events is second nature to me given my early exposure to the industry. Thus, planning and details of our trips is within my wheelhouse. So I allow my wife to do things she's more equipped in doing, like carrying the grocery bags, since she does boxing and Muay Thai, because I have a back problem. So that's what I'm saying. You know, we're not good enough. So, but in our vacation, she carries the kids. Sometimes even the heavy bags, but I carry our little daughter, the youngest. That's because, again, I have a back problem. But being in the financial service for two decades, I'm in the financial service industry, has allowed me access to trainings and experience in managing funds. I help and assist my wife in that area and not taking over, but share what I know. All these things need to be, it doesn't need to be 50-50 exactly. Again, it's not about keeping score. It's about mutual care and service.
Even when I carry the heavy grocery bags, bigyan siya, bukat kayo, pili ikaw carry na niyo. Sige. Also, sa kanang bitang tubig mo ba? So, yes. It's not who organizes the grocery things in the house. So, I really don't know where the things are in the house. I just ask him, asa na pita ang katong gawan diba? So, Mac does all of the organizing for me. And another is that lifetime is such a long time for us to keep as ambitious career women. There are times when we will earn more than our husband, and that's not something that we could tell our husband, oh, diba. It does not make him any less of a man. It just means that God is blessing us in more ways than what we were used to. As wives, we continue to respect our husbands and make sure we are grateful for whatever ways God blesses us. Mac and I are alpha creatures, as you can see. So the question on who is in charge was difficult for us when we started. Because the who is in charge for us is both of us. And now we are tamed, much tamed. Better than before we joined or we had the Biyang Title. It is the context, what can I give rather than what do I get that makes our relationship better.
Because you see, after all, marriage is a relationship, it's not a transaction. It's a relationship and not a transaction. Now, I'd like to take this moment to just, set the tone about to put some seriousness on this part, I want to give you a moment to think about something privately. Uh, Maybe because one of the things that affect affection and sex and this gift that God has given marriage is something we go through. Something that may happen to us. Is there something between you and your spouse said or unsaid, done or not done, that has created a distance? Because sometimes when we are too familiar with each other, we've been together for a while, there are things that were said, sometimes even unsaid, things that were done, and some of those things that are undone, that created that gap and distance. It was no longer like the day after the reception of the wedding. It's no longer like that.
Yes, a wound probably that hasn't healed, for example, and sometimes because of that, we drive to conclusions already. Wala pa rin sinubuhan sa ating spouse.
Now, you don't need to share that in the room right now. You don't need to do that. But what I want to recommend you do is that wound is not the end of your story. Healing is possible. Forgiveness is possible. And intimacy you are longing for is on the other side of that. Now, past hurts affect present intimacy. That's very important to remember. Unresolved pain from words spoken, promises broken, or trust lost creates invisible walls between spouses. Closeness requires those walls to come down. That begins with naming the hurt.
Forgiveness releases the burden. Forgiveness is not saying what happened was okay. It is choosing to release the debt for your sake as much as your spouse's. Unforgiveness is actually a prison that locks out intimacy.
Healing creates freedom. When both spouses have walked through genuine forgiveness and repair, the marriage gains a depth that couples who have never been through hard things rarely experience. Healed scars become the strongest places. Now, I would like for us to allow us to say this prayer with all of you. And I would like you to face each other. Face each other, hold each other's hand, and allow us to say this prayer of healing, all of you. So could you face each other, hold each other's hand, and maybe close your eyes. And let's just take this time and allow me to say this beautiful prayer to couples. Heavenly Father, we come before you today, placing our relationship into your hands. We confess that we have wounded each other, both intentionally and unintentionally. The weight of these past hurts and disappointments feels heavy between us. We ask for your divine healing to touch that broken places in our hearts. Lord, wash away any lingering bitterness, resentment, or anger that we are holding onto. Grant us the humility to admit our own faults and the strength to seek forgiveness. Help us also to extend true, deep forgiveness to one another, just as you have forgiven us. Pour out your grace upon us so we can let go of the pain of yesterday. Rebuild the trust that has been broken and renew our love for each other. Teach us to speak with kindness, to listen with patience, and to see each other through your eyes. May your peace guard our hearts and minds, and may your grace be the foundation of our future. Amen.
Amen. Why don't we give our spouse a kiss
Why don't we give each other a kiss?
of reconciliation? For
A kiss of
healing.
reconciliation and healing, forgiveness and grace. Because the reality, ladies and gentlemen, intimacy, affection, and sex begins within your heart. Why don't we give each other a big hand for doing that, for praying for one another. You see, love is built one intentional habit at a time. Not in grand gestures, but daily decision. So what we'd like to do is to give you some recommendation for us to enhance our affection and sex as a couple. First, protect your time together. Very, very important. Schedule uninterrupted time for each other weekly. Block it like you would a doctor's appointment because your marriage health depends on it. Put weekly date in both your calendar. And again, I did this on our date meetings. We would like to. We have a rule. We don't bring in our phones. We leave them in the car because that 2 hours is spent with my wife and her with me is the most precious time. We protected it. It has to be intentional. How would you feel, ladies, if your husband would come to you and say, I hope you didn't text me anything before I arrive because I don't intend to be disturbed while I'm with you tonight. You must have the feeling. You have all of me. Like John Legend said, all of me. So protect your time together. And that's one of the practical applications we would like to do. Again, put a weekly date in both your calendar. That's one of the practical recommendations.
Next is to show affection regularly. Don't save affection for big events. Do it, build small, consistent gestures into your everyday. Maybe a morning kiss, a text that says you're thinking of them, a hand held during prayer or when you're out in the mall. Just choose one daily affection or habit to start this week. And do that weekly.
Again, move with purpose. Move with purpose. So, before, naguyab pa ta, kung kukuha ta sa tuguyab, madugay kayo overtime, take your time. Karon dugayan, mag-ingon ka, kaki, para ulitin ang money. Things change. But while you're there, take your time. Tanaw na sa kudrig, whatever. Take your time. Be intentional. Alright? And this is also very important, and we would like to recommend this. Pray together. Prayer is the most intimate act a couple can share. It aligns your hearts, softens defenses, and invites God into the center of your relationship. Now, how many of us here are wed in a church? Kita ba tanan? Most of us know. And sometimes when I ask this question, how daw pag-start sa atong union, appeal man si Lord? When at 19 years na wala naman siya inapot. Does it make sense, no? So maybe even that, we could include it because after all, He started with us. He should also be with us. You don't have to be too religious if you want to call it that way, but sometimes it just makes sense to think, sa altar na may kasugod, nanunwala na may altar karon sa akong pamilya. Part of siya. I mean, that's just a reality. Then start with at least 60 seconds of prayer time together, maybe at night. 60 seconds is about a minute. Kung nagtaas pa akong na-reels, ano tanaw sa FBI. So, start ka with that.
Next is Just be creative and intentional. Surprise your spouse. Try something new together. Bring novelty and delight into the relationship. Marriages that play together, stay together. Like plan one new experience. Pickleball is a big thing. Karon, di ba? Do that. Try it. You might like it together.
You know, it was mentioned earlier that one of the things that we invested was when we had our daughter, when she turned one, after she turned one of the things, because Lugay didn't want an anak, so we frequently travel together. So I realized that's something that blessed our relationship. So pag-anak na ako, pag 1 year old niya, we had to make that decision to leave her for almost 45 days, almost a month. To leave her almost a month because we want to continue this relationship. So we had to leave our 1 year old daughter and we went to New Zealand and Australia, date by ourselves, acting like newlyweds. And it helped us for the next 3 years. Ganun tayo eh. Di ba kung charge mo ganit at phone, ganun di ko rin-charge ang relationship. Charge it all the time. You know, and these are some practical things that we need to be reminding ourselves. That not because we have a ring on our fingers and you carry my last name, that's always automatic. It's not. You need to charge it. You need to put in the work. Just like working out. And maybe, and this is some practical, since we're in practical tips already, we are in the topic of practical habits, right? Affectionate sex, it's highly recommended about 2 to 3 times a week.
Doctor recommended, not
And
not our opinion.
I don't disagree with the doctor's recommendation. So, like Stephen, you don't disagree with that. So 2 to 3 weeks, I mean, that's healthy. Because again, and when you notice a decline,
Yeah, so when you notice a decline, you revisit these habits and to connect in a much deeper intimacy. So what my doctor told me, if it's a decline, is a 2 to 3 times a week, then maybe your husband is depressed.
you know, so I just noticed something.
So I tell na, bro, depressed ka bro? Oh, so nag-gets na sila.
Wala, nakita
Kung
something.
depressed ka, di ba? So, kanaya, pero on a serious note, when your husband, when the number of the frequency declines, you check. Maybe the mental health of your husband is, di ba? Maybe there's something na maybe busy na kayo kasi mga bata. So you are unable to notice that your husband is a little bit disconnected. Di ba?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so I just noticed that the room kind of lighten up when we give the recommendation of 2 to 3 times a week. Something we validated, you know, overdose. Overdose. No, but what we're saying is, it might just, it's not just a figure. It's not just the consistency. It's really why it is happening. Because for men, it's not just physical. For men, we may think it's just physical. It's an urge. No, it's not. What we're saying is, it's a byproduct of a fruitful relationship. If we begin to understand and take it that way, because we believe that it's a gift. That's why supposedly, and it's a gift. We believe in that. So we nurture that gift, and we realize that it's also going to be worked on. No? So, kana.
Yeah, and I think one thing also that I learned, which was different from what I know before, is that affection and sex, although they are not showstoppers to each other. So like for example, the affection makes the sex better, but it does not stop the sex. So if we feel like we don't feel the affection from our husband, we don't give it. But because when that's how the snowball becomes bigger. Kaya ito naman apil-apil ang ko'y labog punta, di ba? It was just affection na luhod lang ko. Unya, sex was kind of different. Sad. And it's the same with the husband also. If really mo allow ang wife ng sex, ayaw pang luhod, di ba? It's also different than sad. So, you can be fighting, but ayaw pa-affect ang sex, di ba? Kasi, hindi mo kang sex, may as well do it with your husband, your spouse, di ba? So it's a completely different thing. Although it's affection and sex, it makes it more, grabe nagiging pero that's what I learned. And when you're in a marriage, it's part of your lifestyle. I mean, you may not feel like your emotional bank account is full. I mean, like you don't have the affection that you need. But there is still that sex that you can do with your husband. And your husband, hindi mas type of sex, hindi na siya reason na hindi na sa tumatagal. Then grumpy yung isa mga person na happy, which is, diba? That's not a good practice. That's how the snowball becomes bigger. Diba? So let's not do the snowball.
And I'm just glad that we're not the sharers for today's topic. Can you imagine the sharer's role in this topic? So I'm glad that we're not the sharers, but the sharers could practically probably give you more practical tips. So I don't know how people swing it, but definitely these are just some practical demo, no? That we would like to recommend. Okay. So again, lastly, we would like for you to pick one of these 4 questions and ask it to your spouse in your couple's time. Again, after all, affection and sex are not different. They go together hand in hand. So when we want to increase the affection and sex in our marriage and increase this area and make it fruitful, these are some practical questions you will ask each other in your date night. How are we doing as a couple?
Not are things okay, but how are we really? How are we na husband and wife?
Kumusta ang tayo?
How are we na mama or papa? How are we?
Sometimes when we go on a date, atong storyahan ng mga bata. Tama tayo mo, kurang balay, kataba. So when we go on a
Or
date,
ang budget.
or ang budget. So sometimes these are practical questions that we might want to take note of. And just start with this. How are you? How are we doing as a couple? And next, what makes you feel loved? Because, like dahil na tayo expression, you may know the person, you've lived with her for 20 years, 20 plus years, but there's still so much that you need to know and discover. Because we're not going to be married to the same woman at all. I married her, she doesn't have a child. So ibang dayan yun. When she gave birth, she became a different woman, mother na siya. Iba yung karga niya. And then a few years after, dalawa na yung anak. Nagtatrabaho pa. So your wife will evolve as well. So will you be. You become a father, you have different spouse. So that's why you get to discover each other. That's why you're supposed to continue to ask ourselves, what makes you love? Baka iba-iba yung expression.
Our answers change with season.
Correct.
Okay. So, hindi pa din na, lahit naman ka sa una. Because that's true. Malahit man kita. We grow. We gain experiences. And our mindset, our maturity changes. And so the love also changes. And it will grow deeper because we invest in our relationship and our marriage.
Because sometimes Diane says to me, I'm different because I have stretch mark. My response would be that stretch mark gave me reason to love life better because those stretch marks
Diba?
gave me the kids.
Huwag tayo yung insecurities.
I mean, diba? Because let's face it, gentlemen, we don't expect our spouse to grow their bellies and all of a sudden wala stretch mark. What is unfair? Kita ko na yung mga anak, baby, ba't ako stretch mark? It's really unfair. So, and sometimes it affects our conversation. And I told her, walang halong biro, I appreciate the stretch mark because it reminds me, every time I see it, reminds me what you need to endure to give me kids. For me, that is more important. So, hindi na ko sa sibero na. And next is, yes, pogi points for affection. And this is also something we would like you to make note. And ask this in your couple time. What can you do better? What can I do better? Not what do you need to do better. What can I do better?
That's the humblest and most powerful question a spouse can ask. But also answer it na kind of based on your understanding.
And lastly, I did mention four questions. The last would be, are we satisfied with our connection?
And by connection, not just the physical, but emotional, spiritual, and have a honest conversation to each other, but also be kind.
Yeah. So again, let your affection be frequent
Your intimacy be intentional.
and your bedroom be a place where God's design
Pleasure and oneness is fully celebrated.
honor God by fiercely loving one another to affectionate sense. So daghang salamat for
Alright. Indo tatoy. Thank you, Father Bromac and Sister Yan, for giving justice to our Rock 8. Yes. So I guess daghang tag-learn. Tama, daghang tag-learn? Yes. So, one thing that struck me, Bromac, aside sa goldfish act, na talagang goldfish, kay kapag ganing first thing in the morning, dapat din sa cellphone imong hawakan. It's your spouse. And the last thing, after the day ends, kay imong spouse. So from now on, ikaw ang first ikapon. Love, palungang alarm. Love, set ang alarm. And also growth, that is the reality in life. And same with us. Diba, when we met, we're just 50 kilos. And right now, we're 60, 70.
Yes.
So, growth pictures. Alright, so thank you so much, our wonderful speakers. How about let's give them another round of applause. So, again, now today we are reminded that affection isn't optional in marriage. It is part of God's beautiful design. And marital intimacy is not merely a physical act. It's a sacred expression of love, trust, and commitment. And also, it is a covenant shared between husbands and wives.
Yes, that's right. Today's message reminds us that love should be expressed not only through words, but also through meaningful actions.
So at this point, I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions about today's topic, our speakers would be more than happy to answer. So, dapat tayo mga active questions regarding the topic? Or let's reserve our energy for our sharers for today.
Okay.
Sige. So, I guess, wala ba yung questions regarding the topic? Violent reactions? Get ready, guys, si Romac over there to answer all of those. Huh? Not a question, bro? Alright. Sige. So, if there are no questions, we'll now hear from another inspiring couple. Now, they will share how they lived out today's message in their own marriage. So again, can you please introduce our sharers?
Yes, kani kay kuan kini kana very exciting ang atong share for today. Because the only requirement para aning ato is being married for 20 years. And also, sa atong speaker and our share, they have 4 wonderful children. So kana ang requirement for this topic. Dapat upat ka po anak and then married for 20 years. So, their dream destination, aning a couple, is to visit Canada together with the whole family. To spend precious time with their only sister. They call each other honey. And one tradition that keeps their family close is their annual family vacation and a dedicated couples getaway Their family lives by three beautiful values. First, always remain humble and grateful, remembering that every blessing comes from God. And second, treat everyone with courtesy and respect, no matter who they are. And third, one of the most beautiful traditions in their home is their nightly family prayer, where every member, and even the children, takes turns leading. Most importantly, this couple faithfully serves both God and the community with joyful hearts. Beyond IU family, let's give a warm welcome to our sharers today, Captain Stephen and Jenny Turing.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephen Turing. I was born in Makati, the youngest of four siblings. I moved to Cebu in 1999 after finishing my degree from De La Salle University to pursue my childhood dream of becoming an pilot, and wherein I studied in Indiana Aerospace University. When I moved here, little did I know that God had so much more in store for me in Cebu than pursuing my ambition. It was here that I had a deeper personal relationship with Him as He led me to a singles group, the Ang Lingkod ng Panginoon back then. On top of that, it was also here in Cebu that I met a girl who checks out all the boxes of my essentials. It's Jenny.
Hello, I am Jennifer Rosal Torre. You may call me Jenny. I was born in Dumaguete City but raised here in Cebu City. I love watching movies, and because New York was always depicted as this picturesque and beautiful city in films like Made in Manhattan and Serendipity, I have always dreamed of living and working there. So, in college, I chose to study occupational therapy because it would be my ticket to the land of milk and honey. However, God had other plans for me. I met this young gentleman who worked as a teacher in the school where my grade school cousins went. My aunt introduced us after having the opportunity to chat with him over a field trip which he organized since he was part of the school's extracurricular events coordinator. We were briefly introduced one March afternoon in the middle of the recognition rites which I attended in support of my cousin. I looked at him and there was no physical attraction. I was in third year college then and I had my ideals. My ideal guy was someone tall, fair, and handsome. And Stephen only fit the handsome part. So 2 weeks passed, and I did not hear a word from him, which didn't bother me so much since I wasn't attracted to him anymore. I was also thinking maybe we wouldn't be compatible because of the age gap. He was already working and I was still in college. Until one night, my phone suddenly beeped. It was a message from Sir Stephen, as what my aunt called him and as he was known in the school. We started texting and I didn't notice how time flew by. I could tell that he was an intellectual and that piqued my interest. So we got to know each other through text. Every night, he would text me around 9 p.m. and we would end at around 1 to 2 a.m. Our conversations, tapos, di pa yung text before, di ba? Our conversations were deep and very interesting. I knew that he came from a well-to-do family. And I used to have a bad impression on rich kids because of a prior experience. But Stephen proved me wrong. He was very down to earth, and he had a genuine interest in me. And so, after 2 weeks of texting, he invited me to a snack at Ice Castle in SM ordered, but he ate everything, even what he ordered for me. After the date, after we had a snack at Ice Castle, we then went to Mactan. So he brought me to St. Teresa of Lisieux Chapel, where we both knelt and said a prayer. I had no inkling then that we would get married at the very same chapel where he brought me on our first date. Our relationship started with God's blessing, and we sealed it with him as our witness on July 8, 2006.
As Jenny mentioned, we got married at St. Teresa's Chapel. This is the chapel inside the university. The place where we went to pray during our first date. During our wedding, she was 60 minutes late. Only 60 minutes. I tell you, brothers and sisters, despite being late by 1 hour, she is worth doing. There was a groom who was crying. We were all smiles, even if she was just a few minutes late. We've been married for 20 years. It has been one great adventure so far. Perhaps, just like young married couples, we also struggled along the way as we tried to juggle our career, our new roles, and commitments to each other, and being a first-time parent along the way.
The first few years of our marriage was not smooth. We lived with my in-laws, and I worked in one of the pioneer BPO companies here in Cebu, while simultaneously processing my OT license application for the US. So even when we were already married, I still had a dream to go abroad, and he was supportive of it. As I moved up the corporate ladder in the BPO and became busier, my dream to work in the US started to look bleak. Stephen was also busy in school at that time. He was already a ground and a flight instructor on top of being an administrator. We were both engrossed in our own careers, and being in management meant facing headaches every day. So, both of us were short-fused, and we did not communicate at all, which affected all aspects of our marriage, including our sex life. We were both physically drained with the demands of our jobs, and we already had our eldest that time, who needed our attention. So dates were not a thing the first few years of our marriage, since we had to tag our daughter along during the limited free time that we both had.
Again, as we struggled along the way, our intimate moments also took a big hit. In 2013, I began a new path in my career. That is, from being a flight instructor, I started training as a first officer in the airline that I work for now. God's time is always perfect because just a day after Jenny resigned from JP Morgan, I also began my new job. The trade-off, however, was that I would be based again in Manila. Our family still has a house there, we have businesses there as well. My roots and my friends who are still in the country were there. So living alone for 5 years was not a concern. The big concern was, I had a house to live in, but the place I call home is back here, with Jenny and the kids in Cebu. I get to come home only when I had at least 2 days off, which happened only once in a month, if it happened at all. Those 5 long years were 5 long, lonely years for me. Those years of long-distance relationship, however, the good side of it was some sort of reboot for us. They say that absence makes the heart grow fonder. Distance and longing were fuel to our intimacy fire. Being away from the people I love the most made me realize how truly valuable time is. Time indeed is a treasure, and it reveals sabi nga, where your heart is, there your treasure will be. And my treasure is back home.
sleeping, but deep personal prayer time was close to non-existent. I felt like something was missing. I felt empty. It was when Stephen reconnected with some friends in Impod, and we started meeting together as young couples and had a prayer group when my relationship with the Lord was rekindled. I then felt a change within me. I felt more joyful, and with that joy came a more positive attitude towards everyone, my children and my husband included. I became more affectionate and loving.
Jenny and I understand each other's love languages. Understanding how each other preferred expression and reception of affection is something we have learned along the way. Prior to being married, we were 5 years together as boyfriend and girlfriend. So all in all, 25 years we've been together. In all those years, the love language of Jenny is she's very auditory. She picks things up very quickly when she hears it. You know, when she was younger, she would hear a song a few times and she could memorize its lyrics accurately. I can hear a song for 1,000 times and still not get the lyrics right. That is why I tell her she is beautiful or give her compliments every day, not only because it's true, but because I know that her ears have a quick access to her heart and to her brain. Her other love language is gifts. No, not because she's materialistic, it's just that she likes tangible expressions of affection. Again, through years of being together, we both have learned that giving surprise gifts is really not the best way for us. We deliberately decided that whenever we give gifts for special occasions, we let the other person choose what he or she wants ahead of time. And of course, the brand, the model. That way, anticipation and involvement in the acquisition is still a couple effort. Sometimes, like when the gift she prefers is not yet available, it's abroad or not yet in stock, I would insist that she chooses an interim gift, even if she would say that it was not necessary. Because I would not feel happy not giving her anything on a special day, on a special occasion. I prefer splurging on my wife than on myself. That makes me happy because it makes her happy.
I show affection to my husband in many ways. His job as a pilot entails a lot of risk. So every day and night, I always pray for his safety. I pray for the safety of his aircraft, his flight path, the weather that he will encounter, his crew, and his passengers. I also pray that he will be protected from any and all forms of evil. Because in the industry that he works in, temptations abound. I believe in the power of a praying wife, and by God's grace, my husband has remained faithful all these years, and I have the Lord to thank for that, for giving my husband a God-fearing and loyal heart. Stephen values quality time. Every month, he flies to Japan to train new hire pilots or to check the currency of season once. He stays there between 1 to 3 weeks. And when his flight duty and Japan duty schedule gets released, like a few days before the new month starts, immediately he would call me, "Han, my schedule is out. Okay, so this is my schedule. When will you be joining me in Japan?" That's really a given. And wait, next month, we have VIP. Yeah, but yeah, so even though he will be at work in Japan most of the time, he just tells me to do whatever I want and go wherever I want to go, as long as I'll be at the hotel when he gets back. And so, even if I have work, I do work. I have work. I have work in the school, but my work is flexible. So even if I have work on my own, I would fly to Japan almost every month to spend a few days with my husband. This is one way of serving him, and it touches on one of his love languages, which is quality time. Let me share with you a story about our Japan trip last May. So Stephen and I agreed to meet up in one of my favorite restaurants, and since that restaurant is always packed, so he said, I'll just go ahead and he'll meet me there after his duty. So, sure enough, it was already 2 p.m. and still there were so many patrons, and the places, well, the tables are kind of close to each other. So I was there, I was seated on my assigned table, and beside me were a group of young women, and it turns out they were Filipinos because I could hear their conversation because of how close the tables were, and they were speaking Tagalog. But I didn't mind them. And then Stephen came, so I stood up and I went to the restroom. When I came back, I saw him. He was laughing, and so I sat down. But they weren't talking anymore, so they proceeded to eating. I was wondering what could be so funny. And then, so the women left. And then, that's when he told me. He said that they were Filipino OFWs. They were working in Japan as teachers. And so, they thought we were tourists. And Stephen said, no, he's also working there for short periods of time only. So, they asked him, what do you do? So, he had to say that, I'm a pilot. I went, oh, okay. So, si ma'am is a cabin crew. Because they thought I was a flight attendant. He said, no, that's not my wife. She doesn't work for the air. That's my wife. She doesn't work for the airline. I'm sorry. He said, pala, that's my wife. She doesn't work for the airline.
She owns the plane now.
Huh?
She owns the plane.
Yeah, so, it's just funny because how could they immediately think that a pilot would be with a cabin crew, right? Which is also sad because it is a reality with some of his colleagues that pilots would have extramarital affairs with their crew. But anyway, we just thought of sharing that.
They mistook Jenny for a flight attendant because she was wearing. They mistook Jenny for a flight attendant because she was wearing a short skirt. And I love it when she wears a short skirt. It's just funny that my wife was probably mistaken as a mistress. That's what their immediate reaction and question probably hinted at.
Anyway, back to love languages. Another of Stephen's love languages is physical touch. So, massaging him at night after a long, tiring day at work, or if he has an early morning flight the following day and wants to fall asleep immediately, makes him feel my love. Sometimes the massages would end with a happy ending. And I'm sure you know what I mean. Even when we're just at home, he wants me right beside him while watching TV, or even if we're doing separate activities, he just wants me to be near him. He is the clingy type, and he admits it.
Our sexual intimacy, in a word, may be described as adventurous. Yes, how adventurous? Well, let's just say that our 4 children, Isabel, Gabriel, Francis, and Sebastian, were all not planned. We've had discussions about having Sebin, our 4th child, but we were apprehensive because our 3rd child, Francis, has autism and is non-conversant, which means he will need a lot of love and affection from now and then perhaps until he grows old. So there lay our hesitation. Yet, the Lord built it for us to have another child who will be turning 1 this August 25.
My husband is very expressive with his desires. and that includes his sexual desires. Sometimes, he would talk naughty over text or chat, especially when we are away from each other. We also tease each other, even when we are in the company of other people. And sometimes just one look already conveys the desire of the other. Stephen is very expressive and touchy. He publicly displays affection towards me. He holds my hand or my waist when we're walking in the mall, and he makes sure we are walking in the same place. He hates it when I walk either in front or behind him.
Back to being adventurous. Years of being together has made us more alike. We both like to travel. And when we travel, we don't just enjoy the sights and the food, but we also each enjoy each other in bed. Yes. It's part of the itinerary. Everywhere we go, we make sure we enjoy each other. It's so rude. In our first Euro trip, so we went to London, to Paris, Venice, Switzerland. We're all part of our first Euro trip, and we're all beautiful places to explore in bed. Lalo na pag maganda view. But the second trip to Europe, this time we went to Berlin, Amsterdam, Prague, Florence. Pero just like the first trip, those countries were not spared from this adventurous couple. No place was spared. Anticipation, why? Because the anticipation itself was a highly potent aphrodisiac. This excitement of getting it on with this beautiful, wonderful, smart, lifelong travel buddy of mine in a very physical way was so intoxicating. That is not to say, though, that we have to go out of the country just to enjoy each other in bed. During the hard lockdown days, we were like a local band. We found ways to do it. We found ways and places to do it. Sometimes we do it in a room far from where the kids are, or when they were busy biking, swimming, or doing their thing, physical thing, we would be busy doing our own physical thing at home.
Our sex life is anything but boring. We try different things that are consensual to both of us. I'm comfortable telling my husband what I like and what I dislike. Sometimes, in the middle of lovemaking, he would ask me if I'm okay, if I feel comfortable, or if I'm in any pain. That tells me his love for me surpasses his carnal pleasure. Also, we never fail to tell each other, I love you, during and after lovemaking. Whenever my husband tells me naughty things, I don't get offended nor feel objectified, because he has shown me his love in many other ways outside of the bedroom. On the contrary, I feel desired and I feel wanted by my husband, which boosts my confidence and makes me look forward to the time we spend intimately.
I tell her specifically which body parts I find beautiful. I tell her specifically which body parts I find beautiful, period. I tell her I love her sharp nose, her eyebrows, her skin, the smell of her hair, that she smells really good. I tell her that as much as possible, I would not want to let her wear makeup because it changes her already effortlessly beautiful self. How can you improve perfection? When she tries some new clothes on and asks me, Han, maganda ba? I teach her with, yes, maganda, and I want to take it off. Especially, this is I really make her know that it's nice and that she knows what's going to happen next. I really love it when she wears the clothes that I want her to wear, and I tell her that, brothers, that is not to objectify my wife, but to let her know that I like it. Because again, Jenny is very auditory, and that is the quickest way to her heart and to her mind. I tell her what I'm thinking and what I'll be doing with her. Graphic things we should be censored for the sharing. The point is, for me and for her, that is part of building up the anticipation.
I also tell my husband what I like about him. Stephen has always been fit since we met. And I tell him how I find him macho. Not just in bed, but even when we're out in public. There are times when I stare at my husband and I really find him very attractive, truly. And I do let him know because words of affirmation are very powerful. I'm not saying my husband has perfect physical features. It's just that in my love for him, he has become for me the very definition of beauty. Stephen has influenced me to exercise. So I make an effort to stay fit so I can have sufficient energy and be healthy enough to take care of my husband and my 4 children. And ensure that his needs are met, including in bed. I have a medical background, so I know that a healthy sex life is beneficial to our health, especially to men. Not only is it a form of exercise, but it releases the hormone oxytocin, emotionally connecting us with our partners and elevating levels of happiness and contentment.
Intimacy is beautiful. It can be an expression of love. An expression of love more than words can say. Last June, in Dumaguete, we attended the wedding of the nuns. Our brother Alex,
Who are here at once.
our brother Alex and Sis Anne. We had an intense couple misunderstanding, which stemmed from me misinterpreting Jenny's response to my question. I was also very hungry and angry that time. So my judgment was very clouded. The timing of the intense conflict was so off because it happened just before we were heading out for church. It was not your ordinary misunderstanding. It was one of the very few intense ones when we were both shouting and crying. Admittedly, I was so mad, my hands were clenched and my teeth were gnashing. That's how mad I was. And Jenny was crying and tears were pouring out. Again, we were supposed to go to
We were on the way
on
to
the
the church.
church. We were on the way
For
to
the
church.
wedding.
Yes. That we had to stop in the middle of we had to pull over because the fight was so bad. I had to pull over, it wasn't safe. It was one of those moments when we were talking past each other and not talking to each other anymore. Apparently, looking back, we were being harassed and we didn't know it. Throughout the wedding, we didn't talk to each other unless it's necessary. And we really were not okay, even when we went to bed for the night. The place where we rented had a big room, so we were in separate beds. She was with Sebi, our youngest, and then I was with Francis, our third. The big kids were in another room. We were in separate beds with each of our younger kids, but in the same room. Early in the morning, I moved to the bed where Jenny was. She was with us, and I cuddled up behind her. I hugged her from behind and telling her again that I was sorry. I admitted that I started the misunderstanding and overreacted.
His sincere apology thawed my cold heart, and I turned around to hug him back, and one thing led to another. There's nothing sweeter
and making love after a very heated argument. What a great way to start the day.
God created intimacy, physical intimacy, to be a means of union. Sex is a way to express in uniquely powerful ways our marital relationship, so it should be given importance in our marriage. Scripture says in Genesis chapter 2, verse 24,
Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Everything in life is about God and His glory, even sexual intimacy. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.